Gen Alpha slang explained by a Gen Z. In this video, I want to try to explain the definitions, purpose, and usage of many of the slangs that Gen Alpha has adopted or created. First up, we have the adjective brain rot. Brain rot is used to describe very low quality, low effort content created online. It comes from the simple expression, it'll rot your brain. However, the term is not limited to only content that you see online. An example of brain rot is Cocomelon is nothing but brain rot. You may have heard of Italian brain rot, which depicts weird amalgamations of animals and objects generated by artificial intelligence and usually spewing Italian nonsense. I speak of a little bit of Italian and I can confidently say that Italian brain rot is absolute gibberish. Doesn't actually mean anything. Next up, we have skibidi, everyone's favorite Gen Alpha slang word to just throw around. Now, skibidi as an adjective is different than skibidi toilet, which comes from a video depicting the head of G-Man from the Half-Life 2 game series on top of several toilets. I still have never seen the original video, but I've still seen way too much skibidi toilet content around. The adjective skibidi is used to define something that is either good, bad, cool, or just interesting depending on the context. Good luck trying to figure out whether they're talking about something good or something bad. For example, this place has mad skibidi vibes. They could be saying that the place is either really cool, really interesting, or the opposite, they could say that the place is really bad. What the Sigma is a simple expression used to express surprise or confusion. For example, when you come home from work or school, try to go on your phone or computer, and you realize that the internet's out, you might say, what the Sigma? Oftentimes it's used very playfully. It's never really used in a very vulgar way, such as what the hell or something worse. Next up is rizz, a noun which was Oxford's 2023 word of the year. Rizz is short for charisma and is used to describe someone who's very charming or very charismatic. This is honestly one of my favorite Gen Alpha slang words to use, ironically. For example, bro's got mad rizz. This means the person in question is very charming, very charismatic. He might have a special way with the ladies. Rizzler, a noun which is used to describe someone who has a lot of rizz. This one's hardly ever used seriously. However, even from Gen Alpha, I've seen it used seriously, so it does happen. Gyatt, sometimes spelled with one or two T's, is a noun that comes from African American English, used to describe someone with a big butt. Example, damn bro, look at that gyatt. Next is mewing. This is a verb which means to put your tongue onto the roof of your mouth, to close your mouth, and to apply a slight amount of pressure from your tongue to the roof of your mouth. It's said that doing this over time will sharpen your jawline. Sometimes this is accompanied by putting your finger over your mouth and then drawing it across your jawline in order to express that you're unable to talk because you're mewing, and then to put emphasis on the fact that you're trying to focus on your jawline. As far as I can tell, that despite Gen Alpha constantly trying to look like they're in the mid-30s, none of them are particularly interested in genuinely improving their jawline. Mewing is oftentimes just used as sort of a joke, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are some Gen Alphas out there genuinely trying to mew. What's really interesting about this is that rather than trying to put their finger over their mouth to say that they can't speak, they'll respond with emojis instead of texting in order to show that they're unable to type, which is just another layer of irony on top of it. The emoji combo for mewing is just simply a man putting his finger over his lips, followed by the death emoji, which I believe is a man kind of pointing to his finger. For example, the teacher was talking to Jacob, but he started mewing at her. Next up, we have fanum tax. This can be used as a verb or a noun, and it comes from the streamer and personality Kai Cenat, whose friend often taxes other people by stealing food from them. I've noticed a big trend with a lot of Gen Alphas watching Twitch streamers. Another word that I'll talk about is huzz, which also comes from Kai Cenat streams. However, thankfully, I don't see it used all that much by Gen Alpha. To fanum tax someone means to take a small portion of their meal, the way that you might take one of your friend's fries whenever they show up with a bag of fries. Sus. Sus is an adjective, which is pretty obvious to understand. It's a simple shorthand expression for the word suspicious. For example, bro was looking mad sus after he stole my chips. The uses of this word spread in popularity thanks to the game Among Us, which oftentimes depicts someone being suspicious of being the imposter on the spaceship. Ohio. No, we're not talking about the state. We're actually talking about the middle of nowhere, which is how Gen Alpha uses the word Ohio. This is the Gen Alpha's version of Timbuktu, or middle of nowhere. Gen Alphas will oftentimes say that certain things come from Ohio, or use the expression only in Ohio to kind of say that this action or thing would only come from somewhere that's the middle of nowhere, as if to say it's out of left field. For example, bro looks like he came straight out of Ohio. You do not want to hear any Gen Alpha telling you this. Ruin your rizz, ruin your reputation. Cap and no cap are expressions that are used when you don't believe something that someone else is saying. For example, your friend says, yo, bro, I just won the lottery. You might say, cap. As we all know, Gen Alphas and also Gen Zs love to shorten down the words and expressions that they use. This often comes along with the growth of social media and texting and trying to express certain emotions and convey ideas as quickly and as short as possible. Oftentimes, this expression is replaced by simply a picture or emoji of a baseball cap. Someone else might double down on their statement and say, dude, no cap, I have $1 million. The Gen Z equivalent might be, dude, I legit have $1 million. Next up is the noun aura. This is one of my favorite bits of slangs from Gen Alpha. Basically, aura is sort of quantifying how cool you are. Having no aura means that you're socially awkward and probably couldn't even hold a conversation with the cashier at McDonald's. However, having aura means that you're cool and that you understand all the vocabulary and slang that people are using, which is going to be just like you after this video. For example, bro, is that a fake Labubu? Bro, you've got no aura. Oftentimes, aura can be conveyed in points, where you can gain aura points by doing cool things or things that make you stand out in a positive way. For example, you might hear someone, Gen Alpha, say, bro, you just gained 1,600 aura points. One of my favorite ways that this word is used is in the expression aura farming. Now we have the verb ate. And no, I'm not talking about food, even though I'm kind of hungry right now. This has got to be one of my least favorite Gen Alpha expressions, just because I see it being replicated a lot by older people, usually in a way to say, hey, look at me, fellow kids. Like, dude, stop trying to be cool to your 6-year-old little brother, Zach. When someone says that you eat, it basically means that you're wearing your outfit very well. So if you go up to someone and say, girl, you ate, this means that you look very well in your outfit. It's sort of close to like being called a snack, except it's used as a verb. So rather than calling someone a snack, you would say they ate. But seriously, I'm really not a fan of the way that older people copy this word. Bop is an adjective that's used to describe a woman or girl who spends a lot of time with the boys. It's sort of like the Gen Alpha term for a pick-me girl. While my generation would have used this word to describe a very catchy song, Gen Alpha instead has decided to use this word very differently, so try not to get it mixed up. For example, I'm starting to think that Jessica is a bop. She spends so much time with boys. It's sort of like the Kids Bop version for a hoe. Just put the fries in the bag. An expression, as corny as it sounds, is used to convey the idea of, hurry up already, wrap up the conversation, bro. It's oftentimes used when someone just won't stop yapping or over-explaining, or when they're taking forever to do something. For example, you've been working on that for an hour, dude. Just put the fries in the bag, bro. I'd love to talk more about this expression and some others, but I want to try to make this video as short as possible, so I just kind of want to talk about the meanings. I think it's really interesting that Gen Alpha is using this expression, just put the fries in the bag, which obviously directly correlates with McDonald's and other fast food restaurants. Next up is the adjective delulu, which is another expression I don't like. It comes from the word delusional, however, I believe that it really comes from the word Lulu, as in Lululemon. As we've said before, Gen Alpha is so interested in trying to look like they're always in their 30s, and so of course they want to wear Lululemon. So while I do believe that the root word is delusional, I do think that that Lulu at the end comes from the clothing that Gen Alpha is very interested in wearing now. Example, girl, you okay? You're acting kind of Delulu right now. Ick, another word that I despise from Gen Alpha. Ick is an adjective that's used to describe something that just makes you feel weird or gross. That's used to describe something that just makes you feel off-put. For example, if someone gives you the ick, it means that they do something or have some character trait that you just really don't like. This expression can also be used for places or certain things that you just don't like. An example of this might be, ooh, I don't like 7-Eleven. It just gives me the ick. People also use icks as if they're describing bad habits or pet peeves. People might ask, what's your biggest ick? As a way to say, what's your biggest pet peeve? Op, a noun short for opponent. It's used to describe your enemy or someone who's out to get you. This one I don't see used a lot by Gen Alpha, but I see it enough online and used enough by Gen Alpha that I wanted to put it on here. L. We've been using this term for a long time. However, it's used a little bit differently with Gen Alpha. For example, they've created the expression catching L's, which just means you get a lot of L's. Using L as a noun is a little bit different. I mean, Smash Mouth has been using L for forever. with the shape of an L on your forehead referring to the letter of an L. But Gen Alpha is using the letter L as a noun now. Rather than saying losses, they're saying you're catching L's. Catching L's just means that you're losing or that you're getting a lot of losses. For example, bro, you need to get your act together. You're catching L's all around. It's giving. All right, I'm going to stop saying when I don't like an expression because I feel like I could say that for half the words on this list. Pretty much, giving is just an expression that's used by companies, corporations, or parents to try and sound like they're up and hip with the trends. While I do hear this expression used by late Gen Zs, early Gen Alphas, I really feel like we shouldn't be using this expression much at all. For example, on Netflix, they have certain categories for it's giving Christmas, or it's giving this, it's giving that. Basically, this is used to describe something that has a certain characteristic or that it makes you feel a certain way. Maybe you listen to a song in the radio and you feel like, oh, this is giving some summer. This is giving sun vibes. This is giving beach party vibes. Hits different. This is an expression that's used to describe something that is just unique or interesting. For example, going for a drive at night just hits different than during the day, as if to say that it makes you feel a little bit different than when you would normally do this action. Drip or dripped out is an expression that's Gen Alpha's version of swag or style. Someone who has drip or is dripped out is someone who's wearing a very, very good outfit, oftentimes accentuated with bracelets, necklaces, even earrings. For example, bro is dripped out in Gucci. To flex just means to show off. I think this comes from the expression flexing, like when you flex your muscles. However, it started to take its own form. For example, bro is straight flexing his new PS5 on Instagram. The sentence here is saying that the guy is showing off his PlayStation 5 on Instagram. You can also say that something is a flex. When someone makes a statement that they're showing off something, you could say, oh, it's a flex. Bussin'. An expression to say that something is really good. I oftentimes see this used to describe food, although I've also seen it in other situations too. For example, when you eat a really good meal, you might say, this food is straight bussin'. To glaze. I actually catch myself using this one from time to time. I'm guilty of that. To glaze is basically when you annoyingly praise someone. It means you're just hyping up someone for more than they're actually worth. An example of this is, dude, can you stop glazing Jacob? He's not even that good at baseball. Next up, to mog, another one of my favorite expressions, just because of how unique it is. When you mog someone, it means that you're trying to show up on them, trying to show yourself as being better, particularly with looks. I think it was originally used to describe looking better than someone, but I've also seen it used in other ways. So to compare flexing to mogging, flexing can be used for other things such as money, wealth, items, for example, the PS5 example I used. But mogging is uniquely used for looks or appearances. For example, Kyle keeps coming to school and mogging me in front of the girls. Next up, we've got huzz, which as I said, also comes from Kai Cenat. This expression is pretty fun to use, to be honest. As far as I can tell, this expression gained popularity from Kai Cenat and his community, but I do believe that it also originated from AAVE. Dog water. An adjective used to describe something very bad or poor in quality. I tend to see this adjective used a lot with skills or abilities in games. For example, Mike is so dog water at this game. Is to say that Mike is very bad at the game. Next up, we have sigma, an adjective. Very different from the expression what the sigma, which is just used as a short little expression of surprise or excitement. A sigma is someone who's basically a Chad or an alpha. Not to be confused with Generation Alpha, but alpha as in the apex predator of the group. In some communities, the alpha is the top dog, the coolest guy in the room, but also kind of an asshat, while the sigma is someone who's more tranquil, someone who's more in peace with themselves and doesn't feel the need to always express themselves. However, with Gen Alpha, sigma is just used to describe something that is of the highest quality. Lastly, we have the verb maxing, which can be used in a couple different ways. For example, looks maxing, which is about trying to look your very best and putting as much effort, basically adjusting your entire routine and hobbies and habits around this certain thing. There's also gains maxing, which is where you constantly go to the gym, where you constantly eat high amounts of protein in order to focus all your efforts on gains. Doing anything maxing just means to try to do that thing to the nth degree. For example, if you're study maxing, it means that you're blocking out all outside distractions and only focusing on studying. Maybe you dedicate all your time, maybe you dedicate all your energy to studying. It tends to be more associated with hardcore lifestyles, focused around trying to be as productive as possible on a certain task. Some people who health max want to be as healthy as possible, and so they adjust their lifestyles and routines to match that interest. Really quick now, something that I've also noticed with Gen Alpha is that they tend to use bro in the third person a lot. Growing up, I only ever heard bro used in the second person. For example, what's up, bro? How you doing, bro? As a pronoun, in the same way you might say, what's up, Jacob? How's it going, Michael? However, everywhere I go online, I see people using bro in the third person. For example, does bro know what they're doing? Or bro thinks he's got rizz. I think this is really interesting because it shows how we can take the same words that we've had for generations and still be able to find new ways to use them. And again, as I've been stating, the rise of AAVE online has definitely contributed to the way that Gen Alpha uses their language. I'm not a graduate from the University of Pennsylvania, but I have noticed this pattern. I've even caught myself using the habitual B from time to time. All right, guys, I don't know how long this video is going to be. It's about half an hour recording, so hopefully I can chop a lot of that down. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I just wanted to make a video explaining some of the Gen Alpha slangs that's used. Hopefully this video was helpful to you, or you've got some conflicting definitions for some of these words that you'd like to tell me about in the comments, which I'd very much appreciate. I'd also like to make a video in the future talking about Gen Z, Gen X, Boomer, and maybe even slang from the silent generation. So if you're interested in that, please comment down below to let me know, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Ciao.